D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan live in studio. Willie Donick has finally escaped Edmonton. He's still in Alberta. He's in Calgary, where the Predators will play tonight against the Flames, continuing their road trip. Willie, how does it feel no longer to be an honorary Edmontonian?
Well, it's kind of sad, in some ways. I love the Edmontonians. They're good to us with their hospitality. But after last night's game, I think the Predators could be accused of robbing a point, but they'll take it. So had to get out of town as best you could.
The Predators will be back in action tonight, as I said, against the Calgary Flames. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So as Willie mentioned, the Predators lost to the Edmonton Oilers 3-2 in overtime last night. Their record falling to 5-9-3 on the season. A scintillating overtime period. Darnell Nurse scores the game-winning goal off of a ridiculous pass from Connor McDavid. And one like, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I loved the And One mixtape tour show that used to be on, I think it used to be on ESPN too. Yes. After I got home from school. Loved that stuff. And if there was a hockey version, that pass from Connor McDavid last night.
I hate him. I hate him because we don't have him, so I hate him.
To be fair, there aren't very many Connor McDavids walking around planet Earth, but Connor McDavid did break the 1,000-point threshold last night, the fourth fastest player in NHL history to reach 1,000 points. So I said at the start of this 8-game stretch, and I started that stretch with the road game against the Capitals, because that would be 7 of 8 games on the road. They lose the home game to the Kings 3-0 last week. And I remember before Jared's show one day last week, he was in studio and he said to me, how many points do the Predators need to get out of their next however many games to get things pointed in the right direction? So at that time, there were 8 games. And I don't know how I came up with the number 11. I just said off the top of my head, I think they need at least 11 of 16 possible points to make me feel good about where they are. So far, they are 1-2-2 through 5 games of that 8-game stretch. So my quick math is, how many points is that? 4? 4 points? I think that's right. Was never good at math. But I've said my piece about this team. There are things about it that I just can't understand. I wrote about this for Sportsnet.ca yesterday about the big name free agent acquisitions. None of them are playing well. Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault have combined for 1 goal at 5-on-5 through 17 games. Marchessault is still looking for his first point at 5-on-5. He has a goose egg at 5-on-5 as a member of the Nashville Predators. Brady Shea, his numbers have not been good. There's a lot going on with this team. Willie, when we were planning the show today, you texted that the fourth line looked good last night. Michael McCarron scored a goal. Cole Smith scored a goal. But then you said, quote, Coach Willie is pissed. And usually Coach Willie is an optimist. So when I heard that Coach Willie was not happy, I was surprised. And as you said, they stole a point. I would love to get your analysis of what we saw last night from this team.
I said after the game on Monday, let's take a look at the 2 games on this road trip so far. At Colorado, at Edmonton. 2 teams that at the end of the year are going to be there. These are among the Stanley Cup contenders. Do we agree? Colorado and Edmonton?
I would, with Colorado getting some bodies back. I believe Valerie Nichushkin is supposed to be back in the lineup tonight for the Avalanche.
But in general.
Yes, in general, I would say yes. Yes.
A powerhouse team.
Yes.
Are they running on all cylinders right now? No. So you're putting yourself up against teams that you feel like you're supposed to be right there with.
Mm-hmm.
I thought if Nashville is the contender that they are built to be, they've built this team to try to win this year. They spent the money. They went out. They made the big splash. They had a good build up last year. After Monday's game, D-Mace, Coach Willie was happy. I looked at the numbers. I thought these games ended, by the way, in the exact same fashion. Lost 3-2 in overtime. Came from behind in the third period in both. So the net result is the same. Monday, I thought that looked like a team that was starting to build a little bit, take some steps forward. And so I was okay with that. No question about it. Does it hurt losing in overtime? Of course. But those games, as we know, overtimes can go either way. You guys just mentioned it. Incredible play last night by Connor McDavid to win it. Sometimes there's the stuff that happens with great players that's tough to stop. But last night's game, even though it's the same result, totally different feel from me watching the game. I just didn't see a team that is trying to take steps forward. I thought they took a step backward last night. They got bailed out because the fourth line made a couple big plays. And to their credit, the fourth line is starting to do much, much better. They have stabilized. Remember, Michael McCarron goes from an embarrassing night, an embarrassing play where he gets benched against Edmonton the last time they played, to then getting benched the next two games. Now he's come back and he played well last night. That's a good for him. Cole Smith, who is not known for offense, makes a great play at the end of the game. Zach LaRue gives him a great pass to swim. And it looked like Nashville was going to get just sort of vice gripped and lose 2-1. And suddenly he ties the game. So hats off to them, and hats off to Scott Wedgwood, who, be honest, if you're a Predator fan, when you heard he was starting the game last night, how many goals did you think the Oilers were going to end up with at the end of the game? Be honest, right?
A lot.
But that guy gave him a hell of an effort, one hell of an effort to keep them in the game. But where were the top Predators? Where were the top six guys? Where were they? Ryan O'Reilly, 0 shots. Steven Stamkos, 1 shot. Jonathan Marchessault, an absolute nightmare of a game. He handed them the first goal of the game. He should have gotten an assist on Connor McDavid's 1,000th point.
Yeah.
He should have. He passed it right to the other team. So I don't understand. If you're Andrew Brunette and you're Barry Trotz, I just don't understand how you're watching these guys and saying, who are these guys? How much time do I have to give you before the star players start looking like they are Hall of Fame or all-star kind of guys? They're just not getting it. It's 17 games now, right? You just mentioned embarrassing stats for Marchessault and Stamkos, and to a degree some of the other guys as well. It's just not close to what it should be and what it can be. Now there's still time, but I just didn't see the urgency. You look at the superstars for the Oilers last night. Yeah, they looked the part. Like, if you didn't know who the star players were, if you just went to that game and you were like, okay, who are the star players? It would be obvious for the Oilers. For the Predators, you wouldn't look at Steven Stamkos last night and say, there's a Hall of Famer right there. Or Jonathan Marchessault and say, there's a guy that scored 40 goals last year. It just didn't look that way. So it's got to be better. And I think Andrew Brunette and even Barry Trotz have been more than patient, but I want to see a little more fire and urgency, and it's got to happen soon, or else this is going to be really a rough go. And there's a lot of hockey left, but you're trying. Look, they're 1-0-2. They've got a 3-game point streak here. These next couple of games where the level of opponent goes down just a half a notch, they've got to play better. That's just all there is to it.
I'm not afraid to say it. I think the Predators need to win these next 3 games. I think they need to beat Calgary. I think they need to beat Vancouver. And I think they need to beat Seattle. And my worst fears so far about Steven Stamkos have been realized. I wondered aloud on this station in the summer and leading into the season. Steven Stamkos' impact at 5-on-5 began to diminish over his final few seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was playing with some of the best players in the world, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, and he was a drag on their play at 5-on-5. And I thought to myself, he's going to come here. He's not going to have the same caliber of line mates. And so far, as I said, my worst fears about Steven Stamkos, specifically at 5-on-5, have been realized. I know that he is going to be a productive member of this team on the power play. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But most of the game is played at 5-on-5, and he has been a complete non-factor. 1 5-on-5 goal and 2 5-on-5 points. So at least he has 5-on-5 points, unlike Jonathan Marchessault, who has 0 5-on-5 points through 17 games. That's completely unacceptable. And Eric, we've talked about this when Barry made the comments to Jared about starting the rebuild plan, that what are the things that he can really do? Well, he can take out some veterans and put in some younger players, but he's not going to take Steven Stamkos out of the lineup, presumably. He's not going to take Jonathan Marchessault out of the lineup. He's not going to take Ryan O'Reilly out of the lineup or Philip Forsberg. He's not going to take out Roman Josi. So the fourth line was the only source of offense for this team. But if the top players on this team don't get their acts together, those players who actually scored last night are the first that could be on the bench if things don't turn around.
Well, and this is what I said. I said, you know, when Barry made that comment, it was sort of like, to me, yeah, we have these, you know, the guys that we brought in, we can't do anything with them. Benching them is probably not ideal. Definitely can't trade them away. So what do? How do we try to get a spark, or how do we try to, energize get some energy in this locker room? You have to go to the, sort of the second half or the last half of your roster or your lines. And you end up benching someone because you end up benching a guy that's on the second or third or fourth line, or the third or fourth line, because you can't bench somebody on the first two lines. Why? Because you just paid all this money to go get these guys, and these are the guys that you thought would carry your team. So what do? You got to go to the next alternative. Let me bench one of these secondary guys, and hopefully that message reaches the top of the order. Well, in actuality, it hasn't. Until you do something at the top of the order, it's going to remain the same. This is the problem with free agency, whether it's in hockey, NFL, basketball, whatever it may be. When you bring a guy in, you just don't know how it's all going to come together. I'm going to say this, not by name alone. This was a better team last year. I'm just saying that. Close. This was a better team last year, and they didn't have half the firepower they have this year. That's an embarrassment. It truly is. And it's not like, they're a little behind as far as how I see last year's team to this year's team. It's not like, okay, they're just behind them. They're still, working out some kinks and stuff, and they're still. No, this team this year is miles behind the team last year. And that shouldn't be the case. You went out and you got three individuals that should be a major impact on your team as we sit, but they haven't been. So what does that say? Maybe, just maybe, it ain't going to work.
By the way, the Predators through 17 games this season are 5-9-3. That's 13 points. The Predators through 17 games last season were 7-10, 14 points. So records are still not great, but the Predators team last year was 1 point better than this team, which was expected to be a lot better.
But and I know it's early on, it just looks different. It doesn't look like everybody's on the same page. It looks as if it's this roller coaster ride that they're on. 1 minute they look really good in a period, and then they disappear for 2 periods. One game they look really good, they can't quite eke it out, and then the next game it just falls apart. You can't expect to win in this league when you don't have any consistency out there on ice. You can't expect to win in any league when you have no consistency. And right now, this team, for whatever reason, can't consistently go out there and put together a good game all around and start winning. For whatever reason, they hadn't been able to do that. Maybe, just maybe, this team thought the guys that they were getting were guys that were, still at the top of their game, so to speak, and could come in and sort of seamlessly mesh with these guys that are in now because of their talent. But it's not that way, and it hadn't been that way. And I'm not sure how long it's going to take them to get to that point. Maybe they get to that point, but it's too late.
I remember Willie and Derek in the offseason after all of these moves were made in free agency, and we were talking about setting expectations for this year's team. And I was filling in with Nick Keyser on Chasing Big Joe. And I said to Keyser, my expectation for this team is to finish in first or second place in the Central Division so that they would have home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs and to win 2 rounds. And I remember the two of you reacted rather confusingly, considering that the Predators have not won a playoff round since 2018. But my larger point was that this team is old, O-L-D, old. And you only have a limited time with older players to take advantage of their skills while they're still close to their prime, or, they haven't exited their prime yet. And Steven Stamkos, he's looking old. Jonathan Marchessault, looking kind of old. This is an old team. So that is why I set the expectation so high, because the last thing you want is for them to miss that opportunity. When then those players get older, they decline, and now you're stuck. So, Willie, that's my concern. I know that you do need veteran players on your team. I know that Barry Trotz is trying to buy time for the younger players to continue to develop by having these older players in the lineup. But, to repeat myself, my worst fears have been realized about this free agency group. I did not expect it to be going this poorly at this point.
Well, of course not. To D-Mace's point, with last year to this year, I do think last year, first of all, there was a lot less expectation. There was like, well, okay. But if you looked at the underlying numbers last year at this point, 17 games in, they were 5-10, famously. Then they started ripping off wins after that. The underlying numbers look better, especially 5-on-5. You could tell they had been a little unlucky. There was probably something better there. The numbers they're putting up this year, by and large, now I know their shooting percentage is low, and I do think they can break out and start scoring more goals. They have to. But the underlying numbers, they're getting what they deserve.
Their shot quality has fallen off a cliff at 5-on-5.
Yes, the 5-on-5 especially.
And you wonder why that is the case.
Is right. And you can't, I think at this point, you can't fall back on, well, they're still getting used to the new system. I don't, you can't buy that anymore. That's not an excuse after 17 games. It should start to look better. I thought it was looking better for the 2 previous games. But last night was a step back. Now, Edmonton is really getting it together. I think you're going to start seeing them rip off numbers. Their underlying numbers are impressive, and they have underperformed with their record. But I think you're going to see them start to go on a winning streak. That's my prediction. But Nashville's got to fix their 5-on-5 in a hurry, or else the same thing is going to happen. If you just keep going out and you're not getting quality and you're giving up too much quality, the results aren't going to be there over the long term. Last year's mantra when they really got it together was what? Relentless. This team doesn't look relentless. They're not coming at you in waves. That's what it's designed to do. They need to have. Now, to their credit, I think Tomasino, Parssinen, and Evangelista have been pretty decent as that third line. Decent. Let's not give them a medal or anything, but they've done okay. Like last night in the third period, that's the line that got them going off of dead zero, right? They went about 20-25 minutes last night and got almost nothing, and only Scott Wedgwood kept them within 1. They played a pretty decent first period as a team. Then they went into a complete nothing for a long time, generated zero offense at all. And then finally, Parsons and I gave him a little bit of life, and then Cole Smith made the play. But that didn't look like a team that's relentless and coming at you in waves. This team should be more deep than the Colorados, than the Edmontons. That's where they should be winning the games. And it just hasn't looked like that night in and night out, hardly at all, especially at even strength. They've got to get that fixed, and they've got to get it fixed in a hurry.
And I'll leave it on this. That reflects what you just described, Willie, in many ways. That reflects poorly on the coaching staff. And I sat here with Derek, I believe it was after the loss to Washington, and I said that if this team does not show meaningful progress by the time this road trip ends, they have 3 games left at Calgary, at Vancouver, and at Seattle. So this was after the Washington loss, I believe. If this team does not show meaningful progress by the end of that road trip, it is time to start having the conversation about Andrew Burnett. And Jared said something.
Why?
Jared, because it is this team. Look, I just want to let me. You know what? Actually, let's save that. Let's go to break, and I will give you my reasons on the other side.
I really want to give you because I don't buy that at all. I'm putting it 100% on the players.
Okay. Well, we will continue this conversation on the other side. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
About Lee Company, 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Proud sponsor of the Nashville Predators. 80 years of service since 1944 in our listening area. They have done a fantastic job. Heating, cooling, plumbing, electric, the things that run your house. And you've got to keep those things running efficiently, or else you're going to have issues. And if you're a homeowner like we are at the Donick House, you're going to run into those issues from time to time. So it helps to have a relationship with somebody like Lee Company, because they're going to check on you every year with all those functions in your house. They're going to give you annual checkups. They're going to find the little problems before they become big problems. And then when you do need repairs, you'll get discounts on those repairs. It's called the home maintenance plan. Ask them about it, because you pay a small monthly fee, and it's well worth it, because you're going to save money over the long haul. And this is what has helped keep our house running well over on the east side. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Give them a call. Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
This week's Nashville's best deal is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Enjoy their long-awaited release of their barrel-aged Noel Christmas Ale just in time for the holidays. Get half off of a $100 gift card now at theGameNashville.com while supplies last. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So here's how we left things. I said back before the game against Florida, so it was after the loss to Washington. I may be off by one game, but it was a few games ago. I told Derek, I think Willie, you were doing your Predators broadcasting responsibilities. I told Derek that if the Predators do not show meaningful progress by the time they come home from this road trip, and there are 3 games left on this road trip, it is time to start talking about Andrew Brunette. And I want to make a few things clear before we get into this conversation. 1, I am not calling for Andrew Brunette to be fired today. 2, I am not calling for Andrew Brunette to be fired if they don't win these next 3 games. Jared said something last week that I think is right, because he had this conversation in a sense as well. He said that although it is unlikely that the Predators fire Andrew Brunette, just because something is unlikely doesn't mean it's not worth having the conversation. So this is my point. This is my argument. As I said, this team has taken a nosedive in shot quality. Before yesterday's game, last year per game, they were 11th in the league per game at 5-on-5 shot quality 4. This season, before last night's game, they were 31st. It's gone off of a cliff. And the other thing as well is, like it or not, teams do benefit in the standings when coaches get fired. And I did this research last week. I looked at last season. There were 7 in-season firings in the NHL last season. Edmonton, Minnesota, St. Louis, Ottawa, the Islanders, Los Angeles, and New Jersey. The combined points percentage of those coaches at the time of their dismissals was .498. Okay, remember that number, .498. The coaches who replaced them compiled a points percentage of .593. And even if you remove Chris Knobloch, the head coach of the Oilers, who led the Oilers to the best record in the league after he was hired and took them to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, he went 46-18-5. Even if you remove Knobloch from those other coaches, the other 6 still had a combined points percentage of .564. So it does have a bump. If the Predators are looking to make some sort of statement and try to get a boost up the standings, they're locked into these long contracts. These players have no movement clauses. The only thing they may be able to do to get a boost in the standings is making a coaching change. That is my argument right now, Willie.
Okay, let's take the last 3 seasons for Andrew Brunette. Where did he get his start? Florida.
Yes.
Took over for Joel Quenneville. Joel Quenneville was fired, not for hockey reasons. We won't go back into why. President's Trophy, Jack Adams nominee. For Jack Adams, for those of you who are not hockey fans, Coach of the Year. He doesn't get the job for Florida somehow. I'm not sure, but they went in a different direction. He goes and becomes the head assistant, the associate head coach for New Jersey. New Jersey has, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, the best season that they've had in probably the last 10 to 12 years, since they made the finals, I think in 2012.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that their regular season performance that year may have been the best in franchise history.
And they beat the Rangers in the first round
of the playoffs. Yes, they did.
Wildly successful year. He was a big part of that. The Devils have taken a step back since he left. Then he comes here, and unexpectedly, the Predators get 99 points, and he is the runner-up again for the Jack Adams. So those are his last 3 years for 3 different franchises. The problem is not Andrew Brunette. So he didn't forget how to coach. He knows what he's doing. I don't see why you immediately go to the coach and not look at players who absolutely are underachieving and should be playing better. I don't get that. I don't get that philosophy from the outside. Why is it the coach? I don't understand that.
I would
And-
agree
and
with you, Willie. I would agree with you, Willie, that Andrew Burnett is a good coach. You laid it out there. The record is what it is, what he did in Florida, a finalist for Coach of the Year last year. You mentioned what he did on the bench in New Jersey, not as the head guy, but an important part of that coaching staff. I have no argument there. My point is, let me actually ask you a question first. So you want to look at the players. So far, what has Andrew Burnett done this season to hold his top players accountable? Has he benched anybody? Has he moved anybody down the lineup? Has he taken anybody's power play time away? You're at every game. I watch as many games as I can. Has Andrew Burnett done anything yet to hold any of his top players who are missing in action accountable?
Well, the power play time, the power play has been the one thing that has sort of kept them afloat, really, when you get down there. And by the way, Andrew Burnett runs the power play. No, he hasn't. I guess I would ask, who would you put in? Because it's nobody's playing well. That's the thing. It'd be one thing if you're getting a push from the lower part of the lineup, and you could bench somebody. And no, that's not how he rolls. He is a guy that holds people accountable in a different way. But again, at the end of the day, for this team to be good, those guys have to be better. You think you have to send a message to Steven Stamkos, you got to be better, or Jonathan Marchessault, that you got to be better?
I mean, I look
Or
at a
Ryan
guy that I
O'Reilly?
just signed for 5 years, making $5.5 million a year, who won a Conn Smythe Trophy a couple of years ago, who has zero
He's been awful.
5-on-5 points.
Terrible.
Yes, and he's not being held accountable for it, is my point.
Why would you say that, though?
Is he
You're-
still
you're
getting?
saying
I
they
mean,
should bench him?
is he still getting consistent ice time? Is he still playing a top 6 role? Is he still on the top power play?
Well, yeah, but what would you have him do? Who would you put in?
In this situation, Willie, put in anybody, honestly, because you're sending a message. You can change lines 3 and 4 as many times as you want to, and Bruno has done it. Coach Bruno has done that. He's so much so that I was arguing at the beginning, like, man, let these dudes get used to one another. You're switching lines every other game. But he was doing it. Why? Because he was trying to get a kickstart. Well, if that doesn't work, then you need to start from the top to the bottom. You started from the bottom and never reached the top. There has to be some type of these guys have to be held accountable somehow, some way, because this is what's going to happen. And listen, I don't know hockey locker rooms like I know football locker rooms, but
you've been in locker rooms, and they're all more or less the same.
All locker rooms are close to being the same than not. If you continue to do that, you're going to divide this team, because what they're going to be saying is, man, listen, you keep switching us, and one or two games we're not playing well, but then we start playing well. But the guys at the top, you ain't did nothing with them, and they are not playing well at all. You're going to start to divide the team. What's good for one is good for all, especially when the expectations were so high. Listen, I'm glad I'm not the coach of this team, because trying to bench someone that you just paid a lot of money to, that's on a long-term contract is hard to do. I'm sure it is. But if you're not going to have the question about the coach, you've already changed and reworked and reordered the third and fourth line. What else is there you can do? The only thing you can do is affect the first two lines. How do you do that? Well, you remove people from the first two lines. It's not permanent. It's temporary, to see if this is a kickstart. I'm not saying deactivate them for the game. I'm saying, okay, you've been playing the first line this whole time and ain't nothing changed. Let's put you on the third line and see what happens. You've been playing on the second line this whole time, and I know we paid you a lot of money, but you ain't getting the damn job done. Let's put you on the fourth line and see how you react. It's almost, you have to have a shock and awe with this team. You have to do something that's going to shock and send shockwaves through not just the team, but the organization, saying, listen, we are not going for this. We will bench you if you're making $7 million and we'll put you down on a different line, or if you're making $1 million. It doesn't matter, because what it boils down to is winning hockey games. How do we win hockey games? How do we infuse energy into this team? It may take a guy like Stamkos being relegated to the fourth line for a game. I'm not saying doing it for the whole season, but doing it for a game doesn't hurt anyone. It may just help.
Willie, before you respond, I want to ask you a question, and you can answer Derek's statement as well. You said at the start of the show that Jonathan Marchessault should have been given an assist on Connor McDavid's goal that got him 1,000 points. Did he sit on the bench for any length of time after that, after making such an egregious turnover? Or did he go back out there and get a regular shift?
He got out there and got a regular shift.
And that's sort of what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Michael McCarron had I would say a more egregious turnover against the Oilers. It led to Leon Draisaitl walking right in and scoring a breakaway goal.
More egregious.
Okay, well, either way, McCarron made a mistake that led directly. Okay, either way, equal. What happened to Michael McCarron after he made that mistake? He did not see the ice for the rest of the game. Marchessault just gets to go back out there and have regular shifts after doing that?
I mean, it's a fair question to ask. But this is now that I completely side with you guys on. I do think maybe that's the next thing that might need to happen, is to send some shockwaves to some of the veterans. But that's a different conversation than starting to have the conversation that you just brought up of they need to change the coach. I don't think they're losing because he hasn't benched somebody. I don't see why the heat goes to the coach and not directly to the players, the top end players. Because as D-Mace made a good point, Andrew Brunette has tried different formulas. He doesn't want to change the line combinations. He wants something to find. He's trying to give them runway to figure it out, because he knows at the end of the year, if they're going to make it, it's got to be Marchessault, Stamkos, Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist. Those are the guys that have to carry the load at forward. And then the other issue, of course, is, Brady Shea. He's got to be a top level defenseman. He took a step back last night. I thought he was taking steps forward. That was not a good game for him last night. They've got to have him driving the bus from the back end. Roman Josi, I think, is coming around a little bit, but Josi and Forsberg have not had great seasons. It's really everybody, and you can't bench everybody. It'd be one thing if other players were playing well, and you could just, single out one or two guys. I think that's probably the dilemma when I try to answer your question of why hasn't he benched one of the top guys. But you're right, he has made an example out of, some of the lesser role players. It's easier to probably do that, with a Tomasino or a McCarron than it is a Marchessault or a Stamkos.
615-737-1025. I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject. The NHL, more than any other league, we all know this, they're quick to fire coaches in season. My point is, and I'll clarify this, my point is less about Andrew Brunette forgetting how to coach. I know he hasn't forgotten how to coach, but it hasn't looked good this season. And I read you some numbers from last season that show that teams that made in-season firings saw a boost in their winning percentage, their points percentage. And if the Predators are trying to get back into this after digging themselves a pretty big hole, it's proven to work. But I would love to hear what all of you think. 615-737-1025. How much heat should be on Andrew Brunette because of the Predators' bad start to the season? We'll get to those next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
It's never too early to start thinking about the big game. It's November. Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, has launched a brand new sweepstakes for all its Tennessee customers. The Big Game Sweepstakes, where you could win a grand prize of 2 tickets to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans or $10,000 cash. And what's more is Zen Sports will also award 50 additional prizes, which includes 2 tickets to any Tennessee sporting event or $100 cash. Want in on the action? You can earn multiple entries every day just by betting on the Zen Sports app. For every bet you place, you will earn 1 entry, and for every dollar you bet, earn an additional entry like parlays. Earn double the entries on every parlay place. So what are you waiting for? When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to you'll automatically earn up to $100, no danger first wager. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. Start betting with Zen Sports and download their app today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick 1025-1063. The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you talking the Predators, and specifically Andrew Burnett. Matt from the 757, by the way, great area code, my friend. Matt from the 757 is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a comment on Andrew Burnett. Matt, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
What's up, Adam from 757?
That's right.
So, yeah, I think with the whole Andrew Burnett situation, I think it's really unfortunate for him, but you may be moving into territory where it's either salvage what could be salvaged from the season, or kind of just grin and bear it. And I don't really know that I have a lot of confidence that the Predators are willing to watch this year kind of completely get away from them, especially when you loaded up with so much talent. Last year, it would have been a lot more acceptable. There weren't as many expectations of the team. But, you know, David Poyle, when they fired Laviolette a couple of years ago, they said, sometimes you got to fire a coach because you can't fire 25 players. And I mean, I'm the kind of fan that I want to see the Predators win a championship, not just be entertainment. So I wanted them to rebuild, but I don't think that's an option now. So appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Matt. And Willie, I think that's sort of go ahead.
The Peter Laviolette. All right, Peter Laviolette is famous around the league for going to a place for about 4 years and running his course, which is a great course, probably a Hall of Fame course when you get down to it. He injects life. It was when he was fired by David Poyle, that was his 5th or 6th season with the Predators?
Let me confirm. It was around that time. I believe his time here was longer than any of his tenures in his previous stops.
Yeah, he got there in the 2014-2015 season, and he was fired.
It was midway through his
January
6th season as coach.
Season. Okay. Don't we think there's a little difference between that and a guy in his 2nd year who's coming off a Jack Adams nominee? It's a guy who's in his 2nd year as a coach. That is not fair for a guy that finished what he did. He did a tremendous job last year, and you're going to think about pulling the plug after a quarter of the next year. That's not that is a factor, right?
I think
it would be different if this was his 4th year and they hadn't gotten anything done. Or even if they had gotten something done.
I think Matt's point, I think, is in line with what I was talking about a little bit earlier. And we do have some text to this effect about, let me see if I can find a good one here. This idea that you can't fire the players. They made these commitments to them. If you're looking to light a fire underneath them and send a serious message, it may be the only card that Barry Trotz has to play. And I think what Matt's point is sort of what goes along the lines of what I was talking about, is that I just looked at last season with in-season firings. I imagine if I did some more research, and maybe I will, just because now I'm curious, but I just looked at last season. There was a tangible effect on the standings for the teams who made coaching changes. As I said, the 7 coaches who were fired in the middle of last season, at the time of their firings, if you add up all of their records, they had a points percentage of .498. If you take the 7 coaches who replaced them and add up all of their records after taking the job, they had points percentage of .593. And even if you take out
one season, you picked out one season, you cherry picked.
I don't know if I cherry picked. I just
cherry picked. All right, find the coaching changes from 1998, and then the coaching changes from 2008.
I would be happy to do the research through. I could do through the salary cap era. I could do it through the advent of the wild card format.
You would admit that in a given year, it's not like that every year.
I don't know that to be true. I don't. I only did the research so far for that year.
On one season. Yeah. So I think most years you'll get a mixed bag. Some years
that's
it might
fair.
Be equally unbalanced the other way. I think in the history of sports, firing coaches is a big part of it. And they do tend to pull the trigger in baseball, basketball, and hockey a lot more than football midstream, right? For exactly the reasons you're saying. You can't fire the team. You need some change. But I'm just reading it as a person that's around the team every day. It ain't Andrew Burnett. I'm telling you right now. And it's too early. It's not like his message is going stale. He's in his 2nd year coming off of Jack Adams. It's absurd to be talking about this right now. Honestly,
Listen, whether they have thought about this or not, they've tried to infuse whatever energy in this team that they can muster. And they've tried it by moving guys around in the lineup. If you want to seriously know if it's the coach or the players, then you start moving your top line guys. Start moving them around. Again, I'm not saying bench them, because it's not like, football or somewhere you bench a guy and, he may not, if he bench an offensive guy, it's not like we can throw him on defense and he can play just to get him in the game. No, if you bench him on offense, more than likely he's not going to play much, or if at all. But at least in hockey, you can say, you know what, we're not going to bench you, but we're going to move you down a bit and see how you react to that. See how the team reacts to that, more importantly. And those are the things that he hasn't done. And if he's not going to do it, we can't sit here and blame those that now are starting to point at the coach and say, well, I'm not asking for him to be fired, but maybe, just maybe, if this stuff don't get right, maybe you want to start thinking about changing the coach, because he's done this to himself. He's touched the bottom of the lines, but he hadn't done anything to the top of the lines. So
okay,
when you haven't done anything,
how about focusing on the responsibility of a player who's making big money, who has won?
And that's what I'm saying. Move them
But
down.
why is it up to the coach? Why is it up to the
Whose
coach?
responsibility
exactly?
is it to
Who's
get the best out of the
exactly?
players?
But you're giving the heat only to the coach.
No,
You're
what I'm
not giving the heat to the player.
But what I'm saying is, you put him down the line, Willie. That's the players can't do that. The coach says, "Listen, I am going to take you from."
Can't make you play good.
No, I'm not saying.
Can't make you play well.
I'm not
It's
saying
up
make
to the player.
Again.
Show me something.
Well, we've
Show
tried
me that you look like you should deserve.
Willie, we tried that.
What you're making, it's ridiculous.
We've tried that. We left them on the first two lines. We left the first two lines status quo. So obviously, you've tried everything around that, and you're not firing the coach. So what else do you do?
Okay, Willie.
Well, you start to move guys that are in those first two lines. You start to move them to the third and the fourth line,
Willie,
and then see how they react based upon that.
Willie,
That's
before you respond, I do have a text that I was looking for, and I think you can answer this to wrap up this conversation. One texter says, what does Willie suggest happen? Because by saying you can't talk about firing the coach and the players need to play better, what is exactly supposed to happen? Nobody's asking for Bruno's head on a stick, but if the team with more talent is worse than last year, someone has to be responsible and suffer some consequences.
The players themselves. What is the line by Barry Trotz? I don't want you to come here to retire. I want you to come here and win. It's on the players to do it. It's got to be pride. I'm not asking for anybody's head on a stick. I'm asking for better play. I'm saying the heat should go on the players right now and not the coach. You don't have to put somebody's head on the stick. You don't have to do this. You have to figure it out. And they have 3/4 of the season to do it. It's fine to be frustrated, but when you say just magically change the coach, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen in sports, but this is a guy in his second year who's been a coach of the year 2 of the last 3 years. Both years he's been a head coach. He's been a coach of the year finalist.
So, Willie, if
It's
you're not going
him.
to change the coach, then what do you need to do? Change the players and where they're playing at, what line they're playing on.
Well, I would
disrupt that
for
those
you heard
two
Elliott
lines.
say yesterday. Elliott said Barry Trotz is probably calling around. He said he is calling around, looking to shake it up. It's hard to make trades this early in the season. I wouldn't doubt that that's going on right now. And there's other things. I mean, maybe it is true that it's time to shock somebody and bench them, things like that. It hasn't gotten to that point, but they're still searching. I guarantee you, though, that they didn't sleep much last night, the coaching staff, and they're trying to figure out how to push the right buttons here. But ultimately, to me, those guys have got to play better.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to play better. And it's not just, hey, the coach has to make you play better. The player has to decide, this is enough. I'm a better player than this. We're a better team than this. Enough is enough.
This is what I will wrap it up here. This is what I would like to see from Andrew Burnett in the next few games. I want to see him hold his top players accountable. I thought the example of Jonathan Marchessault's turnover that led to Connor McDavid's goal last night and him being able to continue on a regular shift when Michael McCarron made a similar mistake against the Oilers that led directly to a goal from Leon Draisaitl, and we did not see Michael McCarron again for the rest of that game. It can't
right, but
be both.
you know as well as I do that the rules are different for star players.
But
as
at this
opposed to role
time,
players. That's
they
always
should not
been
be.
how it is.
At this
Well,
time,
maybe
it
maybe.
should not be.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying that's the reality of sport, right?
Yes, I
Patrick
understand
Mahomes
that.
is not going to get benched by throwing 3 interceptions in the first half, right? He's just not going to, right? But the third string linebacker, if he blows the coverage and gives up a touchdown, he's getting benched. That's sports. That is not coaching.
But if Patrick Mahomes throws 3 interceptions in 4 straight games or 5 straight games, then and it's not looking like the Patrick Mahomes, then we do have a problem, and that's a problem that
Oh, yeah,
needs
you
to
got
be
a problem,
addressed.
but he's not getting benched.
We'll see what happens with the Predators tonight. They're back in action against the Calgary Flames in the second half of a back-to-back. We'll see if they respond to what happened last night. You know, I just want to make sure everybody knows this. I love you guys. You guys are great.
Oh, yeah, we love you too. I love you guys.
And by the way, the Predators don't have a Patrick Mahomes. And if they did have a Patrick Mahomes, then yes, we can say that. If they had a Connor McDavid and he wasn't playing well for a week or two, I could say, you know what? He's Connor McDavid. He's the best player on the universe. So he has some leeway. But the Predators don't have that player. So no one has that much leeway.
We'll table this conversation for now. 615-737-1025. Excellent participation, everybody. Coming up next, some interesting stuff coming out about a player who the Titans could be in line to draft, assuming they continue to stick up the joint every Sunday. We will discuss that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you. A spicy first hour of the program. And it's not just because I'm eating a spicy sandwich for lunch. I am sweating a little bit, but not because of our conversation, which I thought was which was a productive conversation, a spicy conversation. I always like getting Willie a little riled up because it's hard to do. And I thought that was a productive conversation, but I do want to shift gears to the NFL. The Titans, as we know, they don't have a good record. People are refreshing tankathon.com every week to see where they are slated to pick. And I believe currently they are slated to pick third in the upcoming NFL draft, which means that they are in position to potentially draft Shedeur Sanders. I know Derek likes Shedeur Sanders. I know there are plenty of opinions on Shedeur Sanders, but I think we can all agree he's one heck of a talent. But there's been some chatter about his father's influence on where he could possibly go. And Deion Sanders was on, I believe the show is called Speak on FS1. It's Keyshawn Johnson. I want to say Paul Pierce is on that show too. It's a weird mix. But Deion Sanders was on that show and was asked about Shedeur Sanders, and I thought he made some interesting comments. This is what Deion Sanders had to say.
But give us a little bit more insight on where you would like to. You don't even have to name teams. You can just give me region, style, whatever that Shedeur needs or you want to see him go and play for. You don't have to give me teams. Just give me regions.
I'm not going to give you regions. I give you understanding.
Give me understanding.
Somebody that can handle the quarterback that he is. Somebody that can handle understanding that what he's capable of. Someone that has had success in the past handling quarterbacks, or someone in an organization understands what they're doing, not just throwing you out there amongst the wolves. You don't have the support in the infrastructure of the team. Forget the line. He's played with lines that hadn't been great, but he's been able to do his thing. But just the infrastructure of the team and the direction of where we're going. He could deal with anything. One thing about Shedeur that separates him from a lot of quarterbacks, Shedeur started every game in high school, every game in college but one, and he's just he is like that, man. Like, he has a true gift, and it comes from God, and he loves this game of football. You see him stunning like his daddy every now and then, but that's just who he is. He got that honest. You got to see that he got that honest. But this kid loves this game, and he has an insatiable appetite to win. And I want somebody to be able to propel him to the next level as well.
You know,
not just get drafted by a team, because we ain't having it.
That was Deion Sanders on the show Speak on FS1, laying out what he wants for a team that could draft his son in the spring. So let's use the Titans, of course, as the example. What do you think Deion Sanders thinks of the Titans based on the criteria, Derek, that he laid out there? Deion Sanders, he's looking at the teams that could draft his son. He might be looking at the New York Giants. He could be looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, the New Orleans Saints. He's looking at the Tennessee Titans. He has his criteria. What do you think Coach Prime is saying when he looks at the Titans from afar?
Man, that's an interesting question on what he would think. I don't think he would say this is a lost cause or a franchise that isn't a good one. But also, you can't say, based upon what has happened just in recent years, you can't say, well, this is the greatest franchise or this is one of the best ran franchise, if not the best ran franchise in the NFL right now. I don't think you can say either one. I think this franchise is at a point now where, they need to get back to what the philosophies they used to have. I understand, wanting to be more of a, innovative franchise, want to step into the new millennial of football. I understand all that stuff. But in doing that, I don't think you can abandon, your core pillars, what this team was built upon. And I think if Dion looks at that, he will see a franchise that, yeah, they've had their ups and downs, but it just seems like they always find their way back to their pillars, and then they end up being a good team for whatever period of time it is. They end up being a good team. You can trace it all the way back from early Jeff Fisher to when the team struggled, to then they added Mike Mularkey. Well, they added some other guys. It struggled even more. Then you add Mike Mularkey, and Mike starts to build back on those pillars. Started to what truly made this team who they were when they first moved here. Mike Mularkey sort of went back to that. And then Vrabel took it and he held on to it. And they had good seasons. But for some reason, in the last couple of years, they've gotten away from that. And we can say, for the most part, the roster just hasn't been good for whoever drafted who. The rosters just isn't that good right now. But I don't think you can look at this franchise and say they are the Cleveland Browns, or they are the Carolina Panthers, or they're the New York Jets. Franchises that just can't seem to get out of their own way. Amy has done some things that have been head scratching, and we all know what those things are. Firing John Robinson in the middle of the season. I don't think it had anything. I don't think it ultimately affected who they were the remainder of the season. I thought that was going to happen regardless. But you do something uncharacteristic like that, it tends to make people pause. What they need to get back to is what were the things that helped build this franchise into a perennial powerhouse? Because that's what we were for a minute. We were for a 4 or 5 year period. We were that team that, more than likely you had to come through us if you wanted to get to the Super Bowl, or if you wanted to get to the AFC Championship game. You knew playing Tennessee was going to be a damn hard out if you were going to win that game, or if you wanted to advance. It's not like that anymore. So how do you get back to it? You just hope that, the vision that Rand, Amy, Brinker, they have is a vision of one that will see some of this stuff starting to come true very quickly. And that's what he needs to look at. Again, they're not the Carolina Panthers. They're not the Cleveland Browns. They're not the New York Jets. And you can name a couple other, franchises. They're not those franchises. They're in the valley right now. And it's damn hard because everybody's watching. But this is a franchise that always find a way to climb themselves out of a valley, or always find a way to climb themselves out of a ditch that they've dug for themselves.
Adam, I guess, is there more to what Dion said than what we played? Because I didn't hear anything there that is anything different from probably what any dad would say. They think their kid is special. His play speaks for itself. He loves football. He's a talented player, and he wants the best for him. Was he saying in there that there are certain teams that I would not want him to go to, or I would use my influence to steer him away from, a la Archie Manning way back in the day, which I thought was kind of bush league?
In that particular clip, he did not say anything to that effect, but I do believe
he did say
that he has said something in the past about not only Shedeur Sanders, but Travis Hunter as well. I'll see if I can find that quote.
But he did say behind the scenes, he wouldn't do it publicly, but behind the scenes, he would.
Yes, that is part of the clip we did not play.
Teams that he felt, if indeed it was the case that he felt his son wouldn't thrive in, he would talk to them behind the scenes. So we will never know unless somebody says something. We would never know what team he's talked to or hasn't talked to when that time comes.
That's the thing, because Archie Manning, I think, pretty publicly influenced the draft way back when Eli Manning, he basically said to the Chargers, "Do not draft him. Figure something out. He's not playing for you." And it worked, I guess. I did not like that at all. I don't like when dads or anyone, agents try to do that. I think it's a privilege to play in the league, and you play for who drafts you. By and large, you're going to play for a broken team. if you're a high first round pick. And I don't know if Sanders, I can't evaluate him at this point. He looks pretty good to me. He may well, we know quarterbacks usually zoom up the draft board and get drafted high no matter what you might think of them compared to past successful quarterbacks. They always get picked high by somebody. And if that's the case, Deion might be pretty disappointed because he's going to go to a team that hasn't had a whole lot of success. So that's tricky to me. So it dawns on me, Deion is coaching a team right now that's got a chance to do something pretty special right now. If he's spending a lot of time researching all the ins and outs of the Titans and some of the other teams that are really struggling that might need a quarterback, the Giants or whatever, then is he really, is he doing the job that he's tasked to do? Like I would think his focus solely is on, let's have a great year at Colorado. So I don't know if he's just talking because people are asking him the questions, and he's got obviously a massive following.
Mhm.
People are going to listen to anything he says. But I think when it comes down to it, what can you really do unless you want to go full on Archie Manning and saying publicly to these teams, do not draft my son? But we're a long way from that, aren't we? I mean,
Yeah,
how
I
about
think
Colorado get to the playoffs and win a couple games, have some fun, have the life experience of what that would be like to win a couple playoff games. That as a dad is what I'd be focused on. The pros will take care of itself down the road. Well, there's time for that.
Derek is right. The part of the clip that we did not play, he said that he wouldn't raise a stink
Mhm.
publicly.
Yeah.
He would do so privately. But he was on another podcast before this past draft.
Mhm.
And he said, quote, I know where I want them to go, meaning Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. So it's certain cities that ain't going to happen. It's going to be in Eli, of course, referring to Eli Manning. So he has had comments.
He's saying he might do that.
He did. He said this, I believe, in March of this year. It was before the 2024 NFL draft. So maybe he's decided that he won't be as public about it.
Mhm.
But he has said in the not so distant past that he could pull an Eli Manning.
So he wants to steer the draft behind the scenes, is basically what you're saying.
That
Behind
seems
the
to be a
scenes, he's gonna
reasonable
tell certain
summary.
teams,
Yes.
do not
Yeah.
draft him. But what can he do if he says not to draft them? And they say, well, he's the best player at number 3. I've got the 3rd pick. This is the guy I want to pick. What are you going to do? What can he do?
I mean, he can say he's not going to show up, but obviously,
Is that really what he would do? Not show up?
I mean, how many players there? I think there are only 3, and
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Like
Dylan.
John Elway could go play baseball.
John- yeah,
Remember,
and-
he tried to leverage that.
Right.
Bo
Yeah.
Jackson.
Those were the
played
3.
baseball.
The 3 that I thought of
Yeah.
were Eli Manning, John Elway, and Bo Jackson.
well,
right?
Eli really didn't have and I think Shedeur Sanders is a much better player than Eli is. It's just that, it's the Manning's name. So they can use the name, the leverage of the name.
And they absolutely
and they
did.
So to me, frankly, however Deion chooses to do it, hell, do it. This may be the only and last time you get an opportunity to make sure your son gets to a place that's it's going to be advantageous for not only the organization but for him. But I do understand what Willie's saying. It's like, okay, yeah, you can do that, but if a team really wanted to draft him, they would draft him. And if you choose not to sign back, if you choose not to go into camp or sign, you can do that, but they still own that right because they drafted you. Now, I don't know how it works the next following year. Do you re-enter the draft, or do they still have sort of the first crack at you because they drafted you last year? I don't know how all that works, but if a team does draft him, he can essentially say, listen, I'm not playing for him. Now, if he chooses not to play for a year, then they would have to deal with whatever repercussions come with that. But to say there's nothing he can't do, yeah, there's something he can do, but would it be advantageous or would it be beneficial to him and or the organization? Because some organizations are probably like, man, listen, we want to draft him and we could just draft him, but we don't want to have to deal with the headache of trying to get him into camp. So we're not going to draft
Apparently,
him.
Bo Jackson told the Buccaneers, don't draft me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not coming. I'll go play baseball. And they did. They called his bluff, and he said, well, all right, I'm playing for the Kansas City Royals.
Mhm.
And a few weeks later, he was in the big, a few months later, I guess he made it to the big leagues. So that's a famous story. I do remember one in the baseball draft. I think that happens a lot. But the base, like J.D. Drew was the guy I was thinking of. Adam, you might remember this was early 2000s, I think. The Phillies drafted him. Scott Boras, of course, it's Scott Boras, the super agent. He said, don't draft him. He's not going to play for the Phillies. And he sat out and he went and played independent ball and went back into the draft the next year. But I don't think you can, I don't know that the NFL you can do that. I don't think you can go back to play in college again. You probably have to go play in the USFL or something like
Wasn't
that.
there a question about Kyler Murray? Wasn't Kyler Murray a highly drafted baseball prospect?
Yeah, he was drafted number 3 overall.
In fact, he signed. He signed with the. I think he had to give back a signing bonus to the A's. He would have played for the Sounds eventually, but he was the first pick in the baseball. He definitely leveraged that. So when you're a two-sport guy and you have something going, I don't see that with Shedeur. So I think this is interesting. I wonder how this will play out. I also just wonder, like, Deion is not an agent. Like, he's got a full-time job. They're trying to get into the playoffs. This is a great thing. So if he's spending a lot of time studying the teams in the NFL and who he wants these guys to play for, isn't that distracting? A chance for something special with the Colorado team, which is wildly fun to watch. It's a great college football story. That's where my focus would be on. There's plenty of time to figure out the draft stuff.
Wesson Hermitage says, Deion also said he doesn't care about the shape of the O-line and he can play behind a bad O-line. I thought that was an indicator that he likes his son in Tennessee.
Hey, you never know.
That might, hey, look, the fact that they don't have a right tackle may actually work out in your favor when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. I'm kidding, but that is a funny note. Willie, I know that you have to depart to take care of your Predators broadcasting responsibilities. Good chatting with you. We'll actually see you in person next week. We miss you. And good luck on the call this evening.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Wish them luck.
All right. Predators back in action tonight against the Flames. Willie Donick and Chris Mason will be on the call on FanDuel Sports Network. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, it's time for Ask D-Mace. We can talk more about, you can ask more about Shedeur Sanders. You can talk about the Titans, the draft, life, whatever you want. It's all on the table for Ask D-Mace. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. We will take it to the bank at 145. And yes, I have to do my Predators duties, but I will make my picks. And I'm coming off a hot week, people, 3-4-3. And I hope my cohorts remember that. 10 points for Donick. He's trying to come back for the title. We have a lot of fun thanks to our friends at F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. And they have so many ways that they can do exactly that for you. How about the Smart Swipe card? If you want to just get in a habit without even thinking about it of saving a little money every time you use your debit card, they've got the Smart Swipe debit card. They will round up your purchase to the nearest dollar. And so every single time you use that card, you're going to be saving money. And over time, that money is going to build up. Simple way to make your banking easier. Just one of many examples they use at F&M Bank. They've got 20 locations to serve you in our listening area. And chances are they're right smack in the middle of your community. That's what they want to do for you. Be part of your life and make it easier for you financial-wise. MyFMBank.com. That's MyFMBank.com. Banking made easy on purpose. F&M Bank, we take it to the bank at 145. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
D-Mace, Vinkin, and Donick. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It's time to ask D-Mace. Get your calls and texts in now at 615-737-1025.
Seemed like I may have ruffled a couple of feathers there.
You did,
I
and we
love
will
it.
address that.
I
But
love
first, Jerry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com with a question for Derek. Jerry, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. D-Mace, do you see yourself in the next 5 years as a producer at the station or as a general manager for any select team that you choose?
Man, thank you. It's a good question.
So Derek
Jerry.
would be going from a co-host
Yes.
to a producer.
Yes. I see myself enjoying life, whatever that may be. That's where I see myself.
I think you could be a good
Enjoying-
producer.
Oh, I would be a great producer and I would be a great GM, I believe.
Derek doesn't know how to take a screenshot on his computer. I would
Well,
not
I do
trust-
now.
You
No,
do-
I do now.
You do now.
I do now.
But I wouldn't trust you with all of those buttons that David has to press back there. The show would never get on the air.
David would have to give me like a weeks-long tutorial, probably a months-long tutorial on how to control everything.
I had to train you for like 2 months.
Yeah, see?
At least.
So if I get to train in 2 months, then yeah, I wouldn't want to have David's job, but I'd take a job, doing something else as a producer.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause
man.
David's great at his job.
So you said you ruffled some feathers.
Yeah, I ruffled some feathers.
You did,
Ooh, ooh.
because in the previous segment,
in Vol country, I ruffled some feathers.
yeah, in
Oh,
the,
no.
in the,
the
pre-
Vols fans are coming after you?
I don't
in
know
the
who it is.
previous segment, we were talking Shador Sanders, and
Mm-hmm.
we mentioned Eli Manning, who dictated where he wanted to go. His family helped him dictate where he wanted to go.
Mhm.
And Derek, just quickly, in the course of a different conversation, in the midst of a longer conversation, you said that Shador Sanders is more talented than Eli Manning.
Absolutely.
We do have a couple of texters to that point.
My opinion.
Yes. Kevin says, you must have lost your mind, dude.
Okay, if you're gonna say that, then tell me why I lost my mind. Okay, I want people to look at this.
Kevin
Just
Kevin mentions the fact that Eli Manning won the Super Bowl twice.
I'm not talking about. I'm saying prospect.
Okay.
And even let's get it straight, people. Come on now. Let's not play revisionist history now. That Giants defense won them that Super Bowl. He made a heroic, unlikely. What would the catch probability would have been for the
So I don't think that was a
Tyree
thing.
catch?
I don't think that was a thing
But
20 years ago.
But just you, I'm asking you, what would the probability of that
Oh, God.
play being a
the
catch?
helmet catch?
Yes,
It's got to be like 5%.
if that, if
I
that.
think that's just helping them out too much.
Exactly. I think you're helping them. Talk about 5%. My thing is, listen, Eli. I like Eli as a quarterback. I like Eli. I think Eli is a good quarterback. Is he a Hall of Famer? Y'all can debate that if y'all want to. I don't know one way or the other. I've seen guys with less stats getting into the Hall of Fame than Eli Manning. And I've seen guys with better stats not get into the Hall of Fame, in regards to that. But listen, when you look at Eli Manning, I'm just talking about the prospect. I'm not talking about what he ultimately became as a pro. He wasn't a great quarterback in the NFL. He was a good quarterback with a great defense, and they won 2 Super Bowls because of that. But you got to give him his due. He made the throws when he needed to make the throws late in the game. One to Tyree, and I think the other one was to Victor Cruz on the sideline. I think that may have been either Victor Cruz was one of the receivers on the side. It was a hell of a catch. Was it Toomer? No, it wasn't Amani Toomer.
Hakeem Hicks?
It may have been Hicks, yeah, Hakeem Hicks. On the sideline in that Super Bowl game. So he has made some crucial throws, some key throws that quarterbacks need to make. But make no mistake, he didn't have a quote unquote Hall of Fame career. He just didn't. You know, him coming out as a prospect, I think Shedeur Sanders is better coming out as a prospect than Eli Manning. I'm not saying Eli Manning wouldn't still, I don't believe Eli Manning shouldn't have been a first round pick or a first pick in the draft. I'm not saying all that. I'm just saying you strip away the name Manning, you look at what he did in college, he wouldn't have been the number one pick.
The catch, by the way, that you're referencing, according to Matthew in Nashville, was by Mario Manningham.
Mario Manningham, a Michigan guy. No wonder I forgot, because he's a Michigan guy. But no, I just believe that Shedeur Sanders is a better NFL prospect right now than Eli Manning. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair. Who knows if it will change anybody's mind, but we'll see. Randy on our text line says, if pro football wasn't an option for you coming out of college, what career path or profession would you have ended up in?
Don't know.
Don't care. Because all you wanted to do was to be a football player.
I don't know, don't care. That's like asking a doctor, if you weren't a doctor, what would you have been? Well, this is what I went to school for, to be a doctor. Like, I didn't think about nothing else.
Well, let's rephrase the question, and
Yes.
David can help with this one. If Derek Mason would not have been a highly successful football player, what would he have been?
I went into college thinking that I wanted to be a mathematician. Found out very quickly, too many damn math classes. Yeah. And I laughed once I saw those damn math classes I had to take. I was like, nah, I'm gonna go a different route. But I'm
not good at math either.
Yeah, I still enjoyed education in a sense. So, I mean, I probably more than likely would have been a teacher somewhere.
I can see you being a professor.
Yeah, so
I could see that. I could also see you being like a personal injury lawyer. I could see mostly because of the advertisements that you see, the billboards and stuff. It's like, 1-800 call D-Mace. That may be too many numbers.
I can see him being a personal trainer.
Well, yeah.
Just because of the joggers he always wears.
Yeah, I could have been, but
he's
that
in
would
good shape. He's motivational.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I could take a number of sort of avenues to what I wanted to ultimately do. But I was blessed with the talent, not only to play a physical game, but to think through situations. I think not everybody is born with the ability to think and process quickly in high pressure situations. And I think I was blessed to do that. I think I was blessed to sort of see both sides of an argument. And I truly mean this. So I could have went into politics, motivational speaker or something. But
Mayor D-Mace.
Yeah, but I never, growing up, it was like, that's not what I thought about. I thought about going to school, using the talent that I was given to the best of my ability, and see where that lay.
The thing about personal injury lawyers is it's such a regional thing. Like, you can tell where somebody's from. Like, everybody remembers the personal injury lawyer in your town.
Mm-hmm.
Matt from the 757 called in earlier. I bet he remembers this name. The person who would always advertise on local TV in Hampton Roads was Lowell the Hammer Stanley. And you can't forget that.
Was he a personal injury lawyer?
Yes.
Oh.
He was a personal injury lawyer. Lowell the Hammer Stanley. You have to have a strong nickname. I could see Derek having. I'm going to come up with your.
Okay.
I'm going to come up with your
Thank you. I
personal
appreciate
injury tagline during the break. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your calls and texts for Derek. This is Ask D-Mace, of course. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D Mace, Vingan and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Before we get back to Ask D Mace, I want to let everybody know to tune into 94.9 The Fan tomorrow at 3:15 for our college football game of the week, Missouri versus South Carolina, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. By the way, on our text line, we did get some suggestions for your personal injury lawyer nickname. We have Derek the Blanket Mason because he's got you covered. We have Derek the Spartan Mason, of course, with your Michigan State lineage.
Okay.
I did show you a YouTube clip of Lowell the Hammer Stanley during the break. He's memorable.
Yes,
you don't forget that. He was screaming. Like, why are you yelling Lowell the Hammer Stanley?
Well, when your name is Lowell, you have to. You can't just walk in and say,
when you get the nickname the Hammer, you also have to yell a lot.
I wonder if that was a given name or a name he gave himself.
It's on his birth certificate.
Self-proclaimed.
It's on his birth certificate. His middle name is the Hammer. It may not have a space between the and Hammer. But you were practicing your personal injury lawyer.
Yes, I was.
I'm just telling you, you're a natural. But fortunately, you had the career that you had, and you didn't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
Our main man, Mark, is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com with a question for Derek. Mark, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, what's up? Before I ask that question, y'all knew I was going to call when I hear criticism toward my good friend. And look, Kevin, you can't take shots like that at D-Mace, man. And if he said the Mannings wasn't that great, Eli wasn't that great, he wasn't. He's not a Hall of Famer. Tennessee fans, I don't care if you get mad at me or not. He was not that great. We know the Mannings cornered the market and got him moved to New York, but that means nothing. So there you go. But D-Mace, I believe you would have been a great criminal lawyer had you, maybe thought of it. But I look at you as a coach, man. I believe you'd be an excellent coach, man. College, pro, high school. I mean, something like Hasselbeck's doing. I really think giving back to the kids, I really think you could do that, D-Mace.
I mean, if Chris Sanders can coach, then anybody can do it.
Oh, yeah. But look, man, this is what you need to do, D-Mace. Go on and run for governor.
Okay.
Let me be your speaker of your house. Let Adam be lieutenant governor, and we'll find something for Willie to do. I don't know what it'll be. We'll find something for him to do. We'll bring David along too, man. Yeah,
hey,
we'll bring everybody along.
Hey, I like that cabinet you putting together, man. I like that.
Oh yeah, be strong. Tell Willie to get with Lone Pronto. Let him throw about 5 or 6 million our way. We'll be good, man. We'll be good. But hey, Adam, I always think about y'all. If I see somebody taking shots at y'all, man, you know I'm going to call, whether it's you, Joe, Adam, D-Mace, Willie. I got y'all back, man. If I hear any more criticism, I'm calling back now. I'm telling you.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it.
Mark, always a pleasure.
Right. Yep.
Phil in Kentucky says, wait, up here in the Kentucky area, we have Daryl Isaacs of Isaacs and Isaacs, who calls himself the Hammer. Who's the real Hammer?
There can only be one
There
Hammer.
can only be one Hammer, like Highlander. There can be only one. Coy in Clarksville on our text line says, Derek, you are Rand Carthon with the #1 pick in April. What are you doing? Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, or do you fleece a team like Chicago did with Carolina? What are you doing?
Oh, man, all three are good options, honestly. Listen, I understand this league is a quarterback-centric league, so you have to get your quarterback. Now, whether you believe Shedeur Sanders is worthy of the #1 pick or not, that is yet to be seen. But I'm just basing it on what every NFL franchise is looking for. And once they get that one person, their franchise usually change. Now, I know there are some situations where, a few situations where it doesn't. But when you get that guy, typically your franchise changes. So if that's the case, I'm drafting Shedeur Sanders and going that route. Maybe I move off the #1 pick, but not move down too far. But getting a quarterback, I think, is essential for the Tennessee Titans. Regardless if Will Levis sort of gets a little bit better moving forward or not. I think getting a franchise quarterback is going to be essential for this team moving forward.
So you mentioned Shedeur Sanders. We were talking about Shedeur Sanders, and I'm going to take an opportunity to ask D-Mace something. David is pulling up a clip that I heard on Get Up on ESPN. It was Adam Schefter, Dan Orlovsky was there. I think Paul Feinbaum was there too. They were having a conversation about Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders. And listen to what Adam Schefter said on Get Up.
Okay, so we got Paul Feinbaum saying that Deion Sanders belongs with the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. We've got Dan saying that Deion doesn't trust his son to go to certain places. And
he's going to control where his son goes, 100%.
So if Paul is saying that Deion is going to be in the NFL and you're saying that he wants to control his son, well, what better combination would there be than Deion getting to coach with his son in the same place? Because you can now take this and apply it to any team that has a top pick in the draft, that has a need for a quarterback and a coaching question. Any team, go through the list.
Well,
and start saying to yourself, would this team hire Deion Sanders to match with Shedeur Sanders as his head coach? You get both Sanders in there.
Right.
Again, it's logical to think in those regards. If Deion Sanders is ever going to make the jump, wouldn't he want to do it for his son? And if his son got to play with his dad, wouldn't it make it easy to go to any place that he was drafted?
So that was Adam Schefter on Get Up. And that clip is a lot like the clip we played from NHL Network yesterday with Kevin Weeks talking about Sidney Crosby and the Predators. It was just to facilitate conversation. Adam Schefter's not reporting anything there. But here's my question on Ask D-Mace. Would you, let me rephrase this. If drafting Shedeur Sanders was contingent on hiring Deion Sanders, would you move off of Brian Callahan?
No, I wouldn't. It's tricky because would Deion see what he's what he's able to do in Colorado is different from what he probably would have been able to do, say, at SC, Alabama, Michigan, some of these,
more of the
perennial,
blue blood,
perennial,
so to speak.
Colorado was left for dead. They were done. That program was at the bottom of the bottom.
Yes.
They needed someone to infuse some life into them. Regardless of whether they won or lost, they needed someone to infuse some life. And Deion Sanders was the perfect person at the perfect time for that program. He infused life into the program, and he brought his son along as part of infusing, life into the Colorado program. Not only, Shedeur, but he's brought his son Travis and then Shiloh. So he brought 2 out of the 3 guys that were going to instantly make the roster better. How much better, we didn't know, but we knew it was going to make it instantly better. So Deion can go to Colorado and do all of those things that he's doing now. Why? Because the program was done. So anything that he brings, they're loving it. I'm not sure if he can take that same sort of approach and have the same sort of outcome at the NFL level.
So with the Titans, I'm not saying they were left. The Titans have not been left for dead.
No.
Like the Colorado Buffaloes football program was before Deion Sanders got there. And there has been a tremendous financial impact for that university because of what Deion Sanders has been able to do in terms of, the money that's been being given to the school, applications, students. I mean, it's off the charts. Say what you will about Deion Sanders. He has had a positive effect on that program and that university. The Titans have not been left for dead, but this organization is in a perilous position. They're a losing team. They've been losing for quite a bit. Not sure what the future holds. You don't think that Deion Sanders could inject the Titans franchise? I hear what you're saying about it's apples to oranges in many ways with pros in college, but you don't think that Deion Sanders could have a somewhat tangible impact on reviving the Titans franchise just because of what he was able to do at Colorado?
No, I think those are 2 separate things. I think you walk into a professional franchise with a bunch of grown men that are getting paid way more money than you. It's a little bit harder to sort of get those guys, because you can't you can't do what you did in Colorado. You can't walk into that locker room and say, I'm bringing my luggage with me. So y'all, some of you guys, y'all need to leave right now. Y'all might as well leave right now. He can't do that in NFL locker room. He wouldn't dare do that in NFL locker room. It worked at Colorado, and look where they're at now. And a large part of it is the second season or the third season. He revamped a lot of his coaching staff on offense. He brought in some guys that from the NFL that know exactly what they're doing, and Pat Shurmur. And look at where they are as an offense because of that. Then they went and got a bunch of transfers, everything else. So you can't do that in the NFL. You can't just walk in and say, I'm bringing my suitcase, my 2 suitcases, my son, my 3 sons, or let's just say 2 if you're able to get 2, because you can only get, if you get Shedeur, you're not getting Travis.
Right.
If you get Travis, you're not getting Shedeur. You may be able to get Shiloh, but you're not getting all 3. So say you get Shedeur and you get Shiloh. You're not walking in and say, I'm bringing my 2 suitcases. So whoever's playing the safety position, you might as well go look for another team somewhere else. They'll look at you like you a fool, man. Like, seriously? No, we ain't going for that. You got to earn the respect of the guys in the NFL as a head coach, and vice versa.
The name Deion Sanders doesn't mean anything.
No. They will know who you are,
of course.
And at the start, some guys may be in awe.
Right.
But once y'all start practicing, it's like, I don't care who you are. Are we getting better? Am I learning? Am I progressing? Am I maturing in this game? And are we, more importantly than anything, are we winning football games? If you ain't winning football games, I don't care who you are or who you were. They're going to fire you after a couple years. So to me, listen, if the Titans want to go out and say, hey, listen, in order to get Shedeur, we're going to fire Callahan. We're going to bring in Deion Sanders. You can do that. But what happens when you have to fire him?
I don't know.
And then what happens? Because then his son is going to be looking to go out the door too, or he's going to be looking to pull his son out somehow, some way too. So to me, I'm not saying that Deion Sanders would not be able to coach in the NFL. I'm not saying that. But I just think if the Titans were to draft Shedeur, and if it was in drafting him, you had to then hire Deion as your head coach, or you had to hire Deion before you drafted him, I wouldn't do it. It just gets too messy if indeed that happens.
615-737-1025. Thank you all for participating in Ask D Mace this week. Coming up next, we'll get into the Titans. A tough matchup for the Tennessee Titans this week. They host the 7-2 Minnesota Vikings. We'll get into that game. And of course, we'll discuss Will Levis. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. We do have a Titans game this weekend, of course. They are hosting the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. I believe the line on that game is Minnesota -6. The Titans, an underdog once again. Obviously, no surprise there. But, Derek, Will Levis is about to face a ferocious defense. The Minnesota Vikings defense has blitzed on 40.2% of opposing dropbacks this season, the second highest rate in the NFL. And if there's one thing we know about Will Levis, he doesn't handle pressure very well. Will Levis has been prone to turnovers. This is according to Next Gen Stats. Will Levis has been prone to turnovers and negative plays when under pressure this season, having recorded the second lowest dropback success rate and fourth highest interception per dropback rate on pressured dropbacks this season. So it's a recipe for disaster for Will Levis. He does not handle pressure well. The Vikings blitz a lot. And it's another opportunity, though, for Will Levis to show what he's got. And I thought Brian Callahan had an interesting answer yesterday. I believe it was Jim Wyatt who asked Brian Callahan if the remaining 8 games of the season, if that gives Will Levis enough time, or Brian Callahan enough time, to evaluate Will Levis. This is what Brian Callahan said on Wednesday.
Talk so much about this year being about finding out about whether Will can be the guy moving forward. Do you think 8 more games is enough time for you to know?
Hard to put a timeline on that. I think for me, I'm looking for things every game, every practice. Those are all part of it. But yeah, I think he improves the play that he had last week. I think we're all going to feel really good about how he's played the position through 2 games back, and we're just going to try to keep stacking those games.
That was Brian Callahan on Wednesday, I should say, discussing Will Levis. Now, to Callahan's point, Will Levis did put forth his best performance of the season last week against the Los Angeles Chargers. He had a passer rating of 127.4. That was his highest of the season. He did not turn over the ball. That's a big deal for Will Levis. But as you mentioned earlier in the week, Derek, just because someone has a high passer rating doesn't mean they were doing things to help their team win the game. And that's what Will Levis had a solid game, but didn't really help put his team in a position to win. And he has a stiff test this week. The Vikings know, they have to know, that Will Levis, when he is under pressure, can do some ridiculous things, and not ridiculous in the good way, ridiculous in the bad way. So part of me thinks that the Vikings defenders and their defensive coaches are licking their chops over this matchup.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Because if you look at it, the things that you do well is what the Titans and their quarterback sort of struggle at. Pressure. You produce pressure very well as a defense, and the Titans offense doesn't handle the pressure very well. So be expecting Frazier to dial up more blitz or pressures, because you don't necessarily have to blitz. You can give the illusion that you're blitzing and sort of, disguise it, and at the snap of the ball, you trick them and you end up getting a free guy to the quarterback. So it's not just them blitzing all the time. It's them giving an illusion of blitz, but then, having a free guy run, even though they're only rushing four guys. So they're good at that. They're good at, giving you one look and change it to another. And, they're good at making quarterbacks make not good decisions when they're blitzing. So, but then on the contrary, the Titans, like I said, they don't do well versus the blitz when you're talking about their quarterbacks. So that's what Will Levis has to anticipate. And I'm sure that's what Brian Callahan is anticipating. So what do? If you're not max protecting, which, I mean, you can max protect every play, but that's not going to do much for your offense, because if you max protect, you usually only having 2-man routes, and you're not going to beat a team with 2-man routes all day. So they have to be able to not max protect, spread them out some, and there must be an outlet every play, a hot route every play, and Will Levis has to identify the defense very quickly. Watching film is going to be extremely critical this week. It's paramount every week, but playing a team like Minnesota, it's going to be critical that he picks up on those small little nuances that the Vikings are doing within their defense to sort of tip whether they're blitzing or not. He has to know all these things, Will Levis. And this goes right into what Brian Callahan was talking about. It's not necessarily 8 games. It's how are you doing play by play, week by week, practice by practice. We went over all this stuff. Now we go out on a playing field against Minnesota, and you see these things. Are you recognizing them very quickly, or are you still having trouble processing it and recognizing it fast enough? If you're still having trouble, then we're not seeing the progression that we need to see. But if you are finding your hot routes very quickly and you're picking up whether it's a first down or it's a gain of 3, then those are incremental things that we're seeing as a head coach that makes us feel good about what can potentially happen if this continues.
So I saw some interesting notes about this game, and I feel like they're sort of opposed to each other. So Mason Rudolph, who of course is not starting, Will Levis is starting, but Mason Rudolph has been pressured on 43.9% of his dropbacks this season, which is the second highest rate in the NFL. Will Levis has been pressured on 42.4% of his dropbacks, which is the third highest rate in the NFL. No surprise there. Titans are under pressure a lot, so it's no surprise that their quarterbacks are near the top of the league in that regard. But here's the huge difference. Levis has been sacked on 28.2% of his pressured dropbacks. Rudolph, 9.8% of his pressured dropbacks. Will Levis was sacked 7 times last week against the LA Chargers. So keep all of those numbers in mind. Here's where I'm a bit confused, and I'd love to get Derek's opinion on this. One thing we've talked about with Will Levis and the sacks, and I think Brian Callahan mentioned this over the course of the week. Sometimes he holds onto the ball a little bit too long. According to Next Gen Stats, Will Levis has recorded an average time to throw of 2.6 seconds this season, the 5th quickest in the NFL, and a quarter of a second quicker than his average last season at 2.85 seconds. So here's where I need your expertise. According to this, he is throwing the ball quicker than he did last season. I mean, 2.6, 2.85. It doesn't seem like it makes a huge difference, but it is quicker. He's getting rid of the ball quicker when he throws it, but he's getting sacked a ton. Where's the disconnect?
I think because he missed 4 games, and they're just counting this season, right?
Yes.
Because he missed 4 games he missed, somewhere around
3.
there? 3.
Well, mostly 4 because he was injured in the Miami game,
Exactly.
and so let's call it 3.5.
Okay.
3.75.
So I think if he would have played the whole time, maybe that number, both of those numbers would have probably matched up a little bit better. But I understand what you're saying. On one hand, he's getting sacked more, but on the other hand, he's getting rid of the ball a lot quicker. I think this last game skewed a lot of things.
The Chargers game.
Yeah, the Chargers game skewed those numbers because he may be getting rid of the ball a lot quicker. Hence, that's why when Will Levis is playing, you don't see him throwing for 200 yards. You don't see him throwing for 250 yards. Why? Because he's throwing 2-yard hitches, 2-yard quick screens. He's throwing a screen to the running back very quickly. He's throwing, hitches or slants. Those things are getting the ball out very quickly, but it's not gaining him yardage. So, yes, I'm getting the ball out, but no, we're not gaining much yards. So I can go 18 for 25 for 150 yards. Why? Because a lot of those throws were quick throws just to get the ball out of your hand, because they know if we don't call quick passes, he's going to hold on to the ball too long. But if we want a big play down the field, that's when you hold your breath. That's when it's like, okay, he's holding on the ball a tad bit too long. He needs to get rid of it. But I do think the last game sort of skewed a lot. When you get sacked 7 times after missing 4 games, really, essentially, it is going to make the numbers seem kind of quirky a little bit.
That's true. And Teron Davenport tweeted 25 minutes ago, Brian Callahan said he spent some extra time with Will Levis this week in preparation for the Vikings defense. They're going through film and working to show him, quote, answers to the test. Callahan said they're trying to make sure they balance not having over-analysis paralysis.
Yeah, and I think sometimes for Will Levis, that is what has happened because of him, because of how his season started and the mistakes that he was making. Now he's gotten a little bit gun shy in a sense where he may be holding on to the ball at times a little bit too long. So what you want to try to get him to is a point where, listen, if you see it, trust it and throw it. Right now, Will Levis isn't trusting what he's seeing, even though he may be seeing the right thing. He's just not trusting. And when I say the right thing, he may be seeing a pass that can be thrown, but because the defense is a little bit tighter than what he expects, he's not going to throw it because of the past mistakes he's made.
So we also have some injury news for the Tennessee Titans. Leroy Watson and L'Jarius Sneed are out for Sunday's game. So another game missed for L'Jarius Sneed. No surprise there. Nicholas Petit-Frere will start at right tackle for the Tennessee Titans. So we're just talking about the Vikings. They bring the blitz roughly 40% of the time, the second highest rate in the NFL. And you have an offensive line that struggles to handle pressure. Petit-Frere, at the beginning of the season, he had some rough games. It just seems like all of these things add up to what could be an ugly game on Sunday.
Best believe they will blitz the right side of the Titans line to their left side. They will put a ton of pressure on PT and on Radens and on Brunskill. That side from the center to the right, they're going to put a bunch of pressure on that side and see if they can truly handle it. But because from what they've seen, they can't handle it. And it's next contestant up. You won the prize of playing right tackle, Nicholas, once again. And with him, it hasn't changed. So to me, if I'm Frazier, I'm looking to draw up every blitz imaginable to that right side of that line. And I'm going to force the Titans to max protect or help every play to the right side at least.
So to put the right tackle struggles in perspective, Titans right tackles have combined to allow pressure on 16.2% of their pass blocking snaps, the highest rate in the NFL, which is not a surprise to hear, considering how many players they've cycled through, the quality of the players they've cycled through at right tackle. Left tackle, they have allowed a combined pressure rate of 11.3%, which is mostly J.C. Latham, but better at least on the left side than the right side. No surprise there. But I see this game, I feel like I've made my decision on Will Levis. I mean, could he be the quarterback for this team next year? If you want to wait on taking a quarterback, if someone in this class doesn't really sit, we talked a lot about Shedeur Sanders today. Maybe there's not a quarterback in this class that excites you and you want to give it another year of Will Levis because maybe you'll stink again and you'll get a crack at the quarterbacks in the following class. It wouldn't shock me if Will Levis was still playing quarterback for the Titans next season. But
newsflash, he will be. He will be on the roster, at least. Let's say that. I know you don't want to hear that, Adam and listeners, but he will be on the roster next year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Sam Darnold yesterday, and it works out well because the Vikings are here. Sam Darnold plays for the Vikings. We referenced Jeremy Fowler's notebook with Dan Graziano, where he predicted that Sam Darnold might end up with the Titans next season. And I think it would be a better idea to have Will Levis and or Mason Rudolph or someone like Mason Rudolph at quarterback next season, because you'll probably stink and you'll give yourself a better shot at getting another high draft pick. Sam Darnold is good enough to win you more games, and you'll still probably be a bad team, but then you'll be picking later in the first round, and that won't help you. So I actually do, in a lot of ways, it does make sense for Will Levis to remain on this team, but I'm not sure how much more convincing he can do. I mean, there are people out there who still want to give Will Levis a shot, and I hear you. And good on you for having the patience. I definitely don't have, but it's just, I'm not sure. Like, I think this game could get really ugly. Like, I just think with everything we've just talked about, the Vikings defense, the Titans offensive line, the way Will Levis responds to pressure, not well. I like, the line is 6. I don't see a Lions type game happening here, but I could see all of this adding up to a rather decisive win for the Vikings on Sunday.
And it could very well end up that way. But it's not like the Vikings have been, lighting the world on fire the last couple of weeks either.
True.
Sam Darnold seems to be coming back down to earth. He's struggling some. That defense is still playing the way that, they're still playing like a good defense is supposed to play, regardless of what your offense is doing. But I think that offense has come back down to earth, more importantly, the quarterback. So it's not like, you're going against the Kansas City Chiefs or the Detroit Lions or the Buffalo Bills, the two teams they faced over the last 3 weeks. You are going against a really good or good Vikings team with a really good defense. But their offense has been struggling. So you can take advantage of that struggling offense. Just like we talked about the Minnesota Vikings putting pressure on the Titans quarterbacks, be expecting the same thing from Denard Wilson, considering what Darnold has looked like the last couple of weeks. And it's not like his offensive line is the greatest either. So this could turn out to be an interesting game. It really can. I could see it going either way. I could see a blowout, but then I could see the Titans finding a way to win. Because again, they're not going up against a juggernaut of an offense. Yes, Darnold has played well, but the last couple of weeks he's looked rather pedestrian, to say the least.
Yes, he has sort of reverted back to the Sam Darnold people know.
Exactly.
Versus the Sam Darnold who started the season on fire. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans matchup against the Vikings. Of course, I want to get Derek's opinion on Justin Jefferson. I'd also like to know who the heck is covering Justin Jefferson this weekend. We'll get to that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time now. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got a solution for that. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and will address the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We will take it to the bank in the next segment, presented by F&M Bank. David, I hope that Willie gave you his picks.
He hasn't yet, but I'll text him.
Oh, if Willie doesn't get them in, I think he should get a 0.
Too bad, so sad.
I think that's fair.
I think he has 20 minutes to get them in. I told him before the show when he told us that he wasn't going to be here for Take It to the Bank. You better get those picks in.
Yeah, we have no sympathy.
I
for
take no prisoners, as we saw yesterday, as I was interim commissioner on Silly Underdog Picks. So we've talked about the Vikings defense against the Titans offensive line and Will Levis. Derek mentioned that the Vikings offense hasn't necessarily been prolific this season, or at least in recent games. Sam Darnold has struggled, but we know who the Vikings have on the other side, on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Jefferson. L'Jarius Sneed, who would be covering Justin Jefferson if he were able to play, is not playing this weekend.
No.
Another missed game for L'Jarius Sneed. Chidobe Awuzie, out again. He's been out for most of the season. I think that leaves Jarvis Brownlee Jr. as the primary cover for Justin Jefferson. And I actually saw this in the Tennessean. Brownlee said that Justin Jefferson started talking smack to him before Brownlee was even a member of the Titans. Quote, a year or two ago, I was with Dalvin Cook and James Cook. I'm real close to those guys. They just kind of put me on the phone with Jefferson. It was a great conversation. He told me when I get in the league, he's going to work me. Well, we could see that on Sunday. Derek, as our resident wide receiver, we know that Justin Jefferson is an incredible player. What makes him so special?
Everything. Everything makes Justin Jefferson special. His ability, his control, body control, for one. There's not a... He reminds me of sort of like T-Hop, Fitzgerald, guys like that. It's really Fitzgerald, guys like that have this innate ability to contort their body to just about any throw. It doesn't matter if it's on the right shoulder, left shoulder, at their feet, they're running full speed. They find a way to contort their body and make the catch somehow, some way. So he does that just as good as anybody in the National Football League right now. His hands are excellent. He's a hell of a route runner. And what makes him really good is his yards at the catch. He can take a 5-yard hitch or a 5-yard slant and turn it into an 85-yard touchdown because he has breakaway speed. I think he understands concepts and what they're looking for in their offense. He's been in his offense. This is what you call a second year in this as head coach.
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, O'Connell's. This is second year or is this first year?
It's definitely not. It's definitely not his first year.
Yes, it's second year.
Second year.
So I think he understands what O'Connell was looking for in regards to.
It's actually his third year.
Third year?
Yes.
Well, he really understands what O'Connell was looking for in regards to route concept, spacing, and everything else. And, even though, he has a target on his back every game, every team game plans for him, he finds a way to make a play no matter what. That's what makes Jefferson an elite wide receiver. That's what makes him sort of this one of a kind player at his position.
So Justin Jefferson, the Vikings are a more pass heavy team.
Mm-hmm.
No surprise, Justin Jefferson is getting the lion's share of the targets. He has 78 targets this season. The next closest receiver, Jordan Addison, has 33 targets. So the ball is going to Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, if you were Denard Wilson and that Jarvis Brownlee is going to be shadowing Justin Jefferson a lot, he's going to need help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, regardless of who's playing against Justin Jefferson, you're going to need help. How would you go about scheming on defense to help Brownlee and try to keep Jefferson in check?
I'm not sure what you can do. Because I'm sure every defense that they played tried to do what
Yes, that's
what
true.
you are thinking about doing. You just hope what you try to do in situations like that, you try to throw the timing off a little bit. You can't allow a guy like Jefferson to run scot-free off the line of scrimmage. That's like letting Tyreek Hill just run off the line of scrimmage without being impeded by in any way. You have to put your hands on him. You got to find a way to be physical with them and put your hands on them while having help over the top of you. Other than that, I'm not sure there's much you can do. Get to the quarterback as quickly as possible. But again, it's all about just trying to throw the rhythm and the timing off with Jefferson than anything, because listen, he's going to get his catches. That's what he's going to do. But if you throw the timing off, just a little bit, it may force Darnold to look elsewhere. And we know he wants to go to Jefferson.
I did fail to mention, by the way, that TJ Hawkinson has been back the past couple of weeks from injury. So there's another.
Yeah, that's a critical part of their offense, having a big, physical, good tight end like Hawkinson. But if you throw off the timing with Jefferson just a little bit, that means now Darnold has to go look for someone else. And the numbers bear it. He doesn't like to do that.
No.
He wants to throw the Jefferson. So if you can make him sort of pause just a little bit and look somewhere else, you've won. Let somebody else try to beat you. Don't let this guy beat you. But you know what? Every team that has played the Minnesota Vikings have said that. Do not let Jefferson beat you. We're going to let him throw it to Addison or Hawkinson or whoever else. And what happens? They always manage to find Jefferson in points of the game where they need a big play. So I'm not sure what you can do outside of tackling him every play, but what can help is throwing off the timing a little bit and then getting pressure on Darnold.
You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him.
Absolutely.
Was that Stuart Scott? I always attribute that to Stuart Scott. I don't know whose quote that is.
It's like going out there and playing against, LeBron James or Michael Jordan, somebody like that. It's like, listen, we can't stop the guy. We hope to have a bad shooting night, but we can't stop him, Steph Curry. We can't stop him, Doncic, Jokic. We can't stop these guys. But, man, we need to throw their rhythm off and force them to pass the ball to somebody else and make them take the shot rather than these guys. But many have tried and many have failed.
So here's the potential answer from Next Gen Stats. So of Jefferson's 831 total receiving yards, 568 of them have come against single high coverage, the most in the NFL. But in week 10, Jefferson was the intended receiver on all three of Sam Darnold's interceptions against the Jaguars, with all three coming against split safety coverage.
What that tells me is play man underneath, too high over the top. Basically, two-man concept. Try to take away the underneath route, force Darnold to throw the ball over your head, where we have a safety that's there to protect our underneath coverage. Again, what are you doing? You're throwing the timing off from Darnold. You're forcing him to look somewhere else. And if you don't want to look somewhere else, you're forcing him into a bad throw or a very tight throw. And bad throws end up getting intercepted or knocked down. Tight throws, they end up getting intercepted majority of the time. So you just got to force him into tight throws. And the only way you're going to get that is if you play a too high concept and play man underneath and make Darnold make those tight throws, which I don't think Darnold is good at.
Well, Dylan on our text line says, easy fix. I'll simply give Justin Jefferson food poisoning before the game.
What was that? Or kidnap him like Celtics Pride?
Yeah.
I am not advocating kidnapping people. I'm just talking about a movie, okay?
So someone
It's
just
all
like give him
jokes.
a pizza. Hey, here's a pizza on us. There's nothing wrong with the pizza. There's nothing
Exactly.
wrong.
Here, take it. It's on a house. So beside that, listen, there's not much you can do with guys with that much talent. The only thing you can do is try to give whoever's covering him help over the top, and you sit on everything underneath, and you just hope that the defensive line gets enough pressure where Darnold's not sitting there waiting on him to get open. If you have pressure, he can't wait for him to get open. He has to go to another player.
Let's see if we have any other texts about it. Wes from Hermitage says if the Titans don't establish the run game very fast, they won't have a chance in this one. Running the ball effectively is the key here. Very fast and very early.
Yeah, you have to. And that's every game, especially for the Titans. They must establish the run game. And they must make Minnesota one-dimensional. Minnesota doesn't run the football well. If you make them one-dimensional, and I know that one dimension is a really good one with Jefferson as your receiver, but if you make them one-dimensional, you have a better shot at sort of corralling that passing offense. Because again, the last couple of weeks, Darnold has struggled. And if you could get him to struggle some still, if you can continue that sort of trend, then that will help you ultimately try to get a victory.
Let Jefferson.
What does it say?
Let Justin Jefferson eat at the same Chipotle Henry had a couple of years ago. Did Derrick Henry get food poisoning from Chipotle?
I don't know. I don't know.
Or was it AJ? Was it AJ Brown? I don't recall this story.
Yeah, me either. I don't recall that story. I don't want to be putting a Chipotle on blast like that. I like Chipotle.
I do too.
Yeah. So
Matt says, "How will the Titans win when they don't even play in the second half?"
Yeah, you got a point there. You got a point. First and foremost, they got to figure out a second half team. They have to send a team out the second half.
They just got to say, hey, this is the first half, guys. Remember, this is the first half.
Yeah.
We're going from one first half to another first half.
Hey,
that's all you got to do.
Use the Jedi mind trick.
Exactly.
That's all you can do.
Hypnosis.
That's all you can do. But the caller's right. The texter's right. Excuse me. How do you expect to win when this team has been notoriously bad in the second half? Well, you got to find a way to change that. And maybe this is the week it changes. I doubt it. Considering the defense they're going against, but hope is hope.
One thing that they have liked over the past few weeks, we're starting to see Calvin Ridley emerge.
Yes.
Especially since the Titans traded DeAndre Hopkins. He's getting the ball more. I feel like he's doing better catching the ball. There are still some drops, but he has been a better player in recent weeks, particularly since the Titans traded DeAndre Hopkins. What have you made of Ridley's performance these past few weeks?
I think he doesn't have to share the room now. I think that's a part of it. He doesn't have to share the room. And when I mean share the room, I'm talking about the egos in the room. And I'm not saying that D-Hop had this huge out of control ego. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as far as touches, D-Hop had to get his touches. Like you went into the game trying to get D-Hop the ball X amount of times. And maybe that took away from, Calvin Ridley because, Will Levis was used to throwing the ball to D-Hop. And he would probably, if everything was equal, he probably would defer to D-Hop just about every time. And I would understand that. Now he doesn't have to share the room with that type of player. He can just go out knowing that he's going to get the ball thrown his way at least 8 times. At least. When D-Hop was there, he probably didn't think that would be the case. He even said it himself, like, listen, get me involved in the game early. Well, the last couple of games they have, and it's worked out for him. So now he doesn't have to share the room. He doesn't have to share the touches. I know they got Nick Westbrook-Ikine, who I love as a player, but you're not going to take away opportunities from Calvin Ridley because of Nick Westbrook-Ikine. You're not. You would do it for D-Hop, but you won't do it for Nick Westbrook-Ikine, who I think is a heck of a receiver for what they are asking him to do. So he doesn't have to share the room. I think now he's sort of settled into that sort of the leadership role in that room. He doesn't have to share that. And maybe, just maybe, you'll start seeing more consistent football. We've seen it for the last 2 weeks. Maybe it will continue.
615-737-1025. It's time to take it to the bank. We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Here comes the money.
And you can take that to the bank.
Here comes the money. Money, money.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company coming up next here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. But before Jared takes over, it's time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. Customer, community, F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. And by the way, I know that Willie is not on the show right now. He's got to get ready for the Predators game tonight against the Flames. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here. Willie accused me of cherry picking earlier. Well, guess what? I've got the research. I did it. With the help of the NHL Stats and Information Department. Because he accused me of looking at one season. I looked at 10 seasons, and I have the numbers, and I will bring them to him when he's on the show again. So don't go accusing me.
I love it.
Don't go accusing me of cherry picking.
That's right.
I'm going to be work.
Don't be accusing Adam of stuff like that.
Never
That's
Adam.
right.
We
That's
don't do
right.
that on this show.
Yeah, except for sometimes.
Yes. When I say treach instead of dredge.
Exactly.
Did we get Willie's picks, David?
We have not gotten Willie's
Okay.
picks.
I mean,
All right.
I'm going to give him until 2. And if he doesn't give them to you, like, this is my ruling. If he gets them in late, I'll let them count, but there are going to be some deductions.
Minus 1 point.
Yes. So,
Minus
like,
1
let's
point.
say next week he gets 8 points on your scale. It should be really 5 points.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll make sure that happens.
All right. So, David, let us recap last week's selections.
All right, boys. So, first off, Adam, again, you had a pretty good week. I mean, again, you picked Vandy to beat South Carolina by 9.
That did not happen.
Unfortunately, that did not happen.
Wah, wah, wah.
Sorry about that. You also said Stamkos would get a goal. That did not happen.
Not against Utah, no.
Now, here's the catch. McCaffrey, you said was his first start back in a very long time.
Yes.
He did not get a touchdown.
No.
You said he would, but he did get 100 total yards.
Yes.
And Will Levis did not throw a interception, which, again, we're all surprised over here by that. That one
The
right there is
degree
the
of
most shocker.
difficulty on that one, I should get a point boost for that.
Nah.
Oh, you did. You get a
Oh,
point.
you
boost.
get him a boost? Okay.
Yeah, well, you know, just because, like, hey,
It's his first game without a turnover this season.
Yeah, I think that is correct.
All
yeah,
right.
it's very. So you got 5 points.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll
5
take
points.
5.
Okay.
I'll take 5.
for a total of 60. You have a total of 60.
Okay.
Now, D-Mace, you said Katie would get over 25 points against Dallas. They did, but they did not beat Dallas. The Suns did not beat Dallas Mavericks. And the Lakers did beat the 76ers by 8. So you got a total of 4 points because you got the KD part right, but you got the Dallas or the Suns winning wrong.
Okay.
So there you go.
So I got a total of 5 points.
4 points. 4 points for 49 total.
All right. All right.
Now,
Okay.
me, I had Jaren Jackson over 30. That happened. The
Mm.
Grizzlies did not, though, unfortunately, win 3 straight games. They lost 2. They were 2-1. They lost to the Lakers on Wednesday night,
That's
which I
right.
was very upset about because, you know, screw
Well,
the
Ja
Lakers.
wasn't playing, so there you
Well,
go.
you know, hey, listen, they could have won. They only lost by like 5 points. So that's nothing. That's neither here nor there. I also said that LSU would beat Bama by 3. Unfortunately, that was a
shellacking.
That's shellacking. That was I think there's still a touchdown. I think Alabama just got another touchdown from that game. It's just like you hear the crowd roaring right now. It's and also I said NWI would get a touchdown.
He didn't. They didn't throw. They didn't throw the ball too many.
They didn't,
And that's
which is
why they
like-
didn't
Yeah,
score.
that's why
No.
he didn't
Exactly.
score. That's why he didn't score. So
So how many points did you get?
I got a total of 5 points
Okay.
for 38 total points.
And Willie, how did Willie? Willie did a good week, apparently.
Willie, from what he's been saying, he was like it was a big night for him. He already gave himself 10 points. It's just like I kind of want to like deduct points for that already.
Yeah, you can't just
But-
be giving yourself points.
Yeah, you can't be just doing that. But you know, I'm a nice guy. I'm usually pretty nice to him. So, but here's what he picked. He picked Georgia Tech to beat Miami. Now that's a pretty big deal.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
it
did not
is.
see that happen at all.
Yes.
He said the Chargers would beat the Titans by 7.5 points. That happened. And then he also said Florida would lose to Texas. And Texas did put a whooping on Florida. It was.
Well,
there
everybody
was-
saw
he-
that.
it
one.
Oh,
was
yeah.
about-
You know,
it
everyone
was
saw it
about-
coming. But, like, you know, Willie, he's like, oh, you know, I will go with Florida for the points. But he
Right.
picked Texas to do with
Uh-huh.
all the points because of what Florida said
With
about
Billy Napier getting the vote of
exactly.
confidence.
And Man, they
Yeah.
got shellacking.
They got drugged.
So Willie had a good week. How
He
many
did.
points did Willie get?
So I gave him 10 points just
Okay.
because he said he already put it out there. I was going to give him more, but he already put it out there, so he got 10 points.
All right. So what are the updated standings
His-
overall?
So I'm in last with 38. Adam is in first with 60. D-Mace is in second with 49. And Willie's right up the rear with 43.
Okay. So even 10 points, Willie's only at 43 points.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Here are my selections for this week. We were just talking a lot about the Vikings defense. Will Levis will be sacked at least 4 times against the Minnesota Vikings. He was sacked 7 times last week. I think he's being sacked like an average of 3.5 times per game. Will Levis will be sacked at least 4 times against the Minnesota Vikings. The Tennessee Volunteers, last I checked, they were a 9.5 point underdog against Georgia. I will say that Tennessee will cover against Georgia. So Tennessee, a 9.5 point underdog. I say they cover against the Bulldogs. The Buffalo Bills will hand the Kansas City Chiefs their first loss of the season. So that's my third choice. And Derek, I was teasing you about a sporting event this week that I'm not sure how excited you are about it. I'm not that excited about it, but I'm still going to watch it anyway. Mike Tyson will defeat Jake Paul by any means. Knockout, technical knockout, split decision, whatever. Mike Tyson will have his hand raised in victory tonight on
Wow.
Netflix against Jake Paul. How are you feeling about this this boxing match?
man.
My 66-year-old dad, we saw an advertisement for it in Atlanta when we were leaving the Duke Kentucky game the other night. He's like, I am stoked for this. I was like, what?
See, your dad's remembering the old Mike Tyson, which I
Yes,
would remember
baby.
the old Mike Tyson as well. So, but I'm looking forward to the fight. I'm glad I don't have to pay for it because it's on Netflix. If I had to pay for it, I wouldn't watch it.
Well, I mean, you are paying for Netflix.
Yeah,
you
am
just don't
paying
have to
for
pay
Netflix.
more.
Exactly. If I had to pay extra to watch that fight, I wouldn't watch it, but I will be watching it. So I'm like your dad. I'm looking forward to watching that. Okay. Let me give mine quickly. The Lakers play this weekend. Bron has already had 3 triple doubles in a row. He will be going for his 4th, which he will get. They play San Antonio. He will get a triple double.
Not if Wemby has anything to do with it.
All right. Yeah, you're right. Wemby dropped a 50 piece last night. That boy's good. That boy's good. Okay. The Cleveland Cavaliers will extend their record to 14-0.
Ooh.
They play the Chicago Bulls
I
tonight.
like that. I like that.
And Darius Garland will have 20 plus points and at least 5 rebounds.
Shout National Native and
Absolutely. All right, going to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans defense will intercept Darnold at least once and will get at least 2 sacks. And one of them will be by the big fella, Sweat. He will get his first NFL sack this game.
Let's go, Meatloaf.
There we go, Big Meatloaf.
All
Will
right.
get his first sack. So there you go.
So Willie, he got his picks in. So
Okay.
again, we are good.
Okay,
We are good.
all
He,
right.
he must have heard us all saying this.
Yes.
So his picks are LSU -3.5 at Florida,
Okay.
Vikings -6.5 at the Titans,
Okay.
and Bills -2 over the Chiefs.
Okay. Simple enough.
Yeah, simple enough.
David?
So with my picks, I took one over from Kyler. Kyler, our intern, great intern. He's done an incredible job with us.
Indeed.
He has given me one where it's the Jags will cover against the the Lions.
The Jags
So
will cover against the
the
Lions.
What's the
Lions,
spread?
yeah. So the Lions have a 14-point spread. So
Ooh.
I don't think, as long with Kyler, I don't think that it's hard to beat a team by that many points. Like,
Yeah,
if you have
I
that
get
many
it.
points, it's hard to do that.
Unless
think-
you're the Titans playing somebody
Yes,
else.
Well,
Detroit
that's
is a
true. Yeah,
14-point favorite.
I think, again, I'm going back to the well. It didn't happen last week, but it's going to happen this week. In WI, he's going to get a touchdown.
Get back
Oh,
on
wow.
track, Nick Westbrook-Akine.
Man, there's so many buttons to press. That was my bad. I also think that the Grizzlies will beat the Warriors by 10 points tonight.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yes, I'm calling it. I'm a Grizz homer, and I'm calling it.
Oh.
That's
And
okay.
one more.
Hold on. Is Ja playing tonight?
Jaw's not playing tonight. So Jaw's out for a couple weeks.
Ooh.
Listen, I am in trust of Jaren Jackson Jr. He's a stud.
Yeah,
Desmond
he
Bane's
is.
really good. And yeah, that's all my picks.
Okay. Well, I
Alright.
think good picks, everybody. Wonderful conversation today. And of course, all week long.
You
we
know
hope-
why Jaren Jackson's so good?
Why is that?
Because he went to Michigan
That's
State.
right.
Go
That
green.
is right. Go white. That's right. Not Duke.
Not the Dukies.
Hey, you know what? There's some good Duke players in the NBA.
Oh,
There
there
we go.
is.
There
You're
are.
right. You're
Jason Tatum, ever heard of him?
Who's that? Is he still 19?
That'll do it for us today. We hope you had a wonderful week with us. We sure did. We'll talk Titans and Vikings on Monday. Derek will have the pregame show with Chris Sanders and Jared Stillman on Sunday at JBJ's downtown. We'll talk Predators as well. They've got 2 more games tonight and Sunday. We'll see if they can get it together, or else Willie and I are going to have to yell at each other again on Friday. But that'll do it for us. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a wonderful and blessed Friday week.